Hi, I'm Virginia. I've been coming to Western Reserve for 31 years with my husband Kevin and our 3 children, KJ, Ryan, and Ian, and this is my story. I grew up in what was considered a pretty dysfunctional family. There were lots of issues between the adults in my life as a child. And as a child, I just didn't feel like I had any control over my life. It was very much dictated by what was happening and the dysfunction that was happening. The adults in my life did not have a relationship with Jesus. So therefore, they had no guidance on kind of how to navigate life. And so they were making poor decisions. I come from a long line of alcoholics. My father was an alcoholic, and he wasn't a terrible man. Like, I don't remember, thinking horrible thoughts about him, but he did have a problem, and it centered on alcoholism, and he would get violent when he was drinking. So there were many times where, as a child, I had to learn to keep myself safe. I would hide physically at times. I learned to hide emotionally just so that I could survive. And my father did pass away at the age of 40 from cirrhosis of the liver, so the alcohol definitely affected him and all of us. A few years later, my mom remarried, and she married a very mentally unstable person. The adults in my life just didn't have any idea of how to navigate life, and I think they were trying to survive also. So I found myself in this home sort of as a preteen with a very mentally unstable stepfather. I remember having to go throughout the house and get all the knives, and I think we had a hunting rifle in a closet. I remember having to hide all those, which that's not a behavior that you want to have to do as a preteen, and I don't think anybody would ever want that for their child, but that was kind of the environment that I grew up in. And again, for that reason, I learned to put up walls, and I wouldn't let people in. And again, it was just because I was trying to survive emotionally. When I was 17 years old, I had a family friend who would talk to me about Jesus. And she would say that, God was real and that he loved me and that Jesus had a purpose for my life. I had a very hard time grasping that, because what I was seeing about life was that it was turmoil and scary and just sort of swirling and didn't make any sense. So I had a hard time grasping that God loved me and had a purpose for my life. But as life went on, I grew more desperate, and I decided to pray. And I prayed to God, and I said, God, if you're real, I need you to show me, because so much of my life was crazy, and I just wanted truth. I just wanted to know what was real. And I started to pray for things and people, and the Lord started to answer those prayers. And I thought, oh my goodness, He is real, and He is active in people's lives. And at that stage, the Christians that I knew, they weren't in a place spiritually where they could coach me and teach me about how to accept Jesus as my Lord. And one day I found myself in front of the TV watching a televangelist, and I've never done that since, but that was the tool that God used to bring me to Him. And I listened, and he was talking about confessing your sin, understanding that Jesus was the substitute for your sin, and that was the way to have a relationship with God the Father. And so I knelt in front of that television and I prayed. I confessed my sin. I asked Jesus to be my Lord, and I became a Christian that day. And I cried, and I knew that something had happened. I knew that my heart had broken. I realized that I was different, that something had happened. And so I started a journey of understanding who God was. I started to read the Bible and try and figure out how this whole Christian life worked and what God wanted of me. And it's just a totally different perspective when you're trying to go from just survival and feeling that nothing makes any sense to learning that there is stability and there is sense and there is love, and it's all rooted in God. I spent several months learning and growing, and that took me to a point where I was ready to go off for college. And I was nervous about making that decision because I wanted to make the right decision. I wanted to go to school where God wanted me to go. And I had a lot of ideas about that. I mean, first of all, I was pursuing God, so I thought, well, maybe I should go to Bible college. And that just was not acceptable to my family. That was just extremely radical. I had a passion for the culinary arts, and I thought, well, maybe I should go to culinary school. And that, again, was not acceptable to my family. And I had gotten into some schools. I got waitlisted at some schools, and I remember even when on my graduation day, I did not know where I was going because I wanted to hear from God. I wanted to go again where He wanted me to go. So I remember praying in a church service, and I said, Lord, what am I going to do? And it was the first time that I've ever heard His soft voice. And He said the name of a school. And I just knew, as when the Lord speaks to you, you just know that you know. And I knew where I was supposed to go. And I headed off that fall. And on the first hour on campus, I met my husband. And that's where my story turns into our story. When I reflect about my salvation experience, the verse that comes to mind is 2 Corinthians 5:17 through 18. This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life has begun. And all of this is a gift from God, who brought us back to Himself through Christ. And God has given us this task of reconciling people to Him. My life was radically changed when I accepted Christ, and it's been a journey of change and understanding as I walk with Him.